you're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years with data, with AI, with the ability to create a corporate narrative that executives on the other side of the table are going to really become reliant on.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Signal in the Noise. I'm your host, Dan Gaynor, and today we're joined by Evan Escobedo, who's redefining PR measurement by blending AI and human analysis. He's the CEO of Measured PR, previously at Western Union, and he's transforming how brands assess their media presence with innovative approaches. That includes redefining PR scoring, combining factors like prominence and salience to create an industry-specific PR impact score that connects to business outcomes and, of course, is grounded in the corporate narrative. He's focused on proving PR's value by connecting the impact of media engagement and messaging activities to business goals that demonstrate the significance of communications on the company's bottom line. He believes in bringing together the machines of AI and smart strategist human beings to leverage the AI for data insights, but then quickly move into the so what, so that human beings can capture the nuance and the true sentiment of a conversation. And all in all, this is about going to marketing, operations, communications, HR, investor relations, you name it, and collectively rallying an organization from data overload, moving it into so what, so that you can actually improve brand perception and reputation. Really excited to bring Evan's commentary to you today. Tune in for some actionable insights on using AI and human analysis to elevate your PR strategy. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Signal in the Noise. I'm your host, Dan Gaynor. Thrilled to have Evan Escobedo on the program today. And Evan, where are you beaming in from?
I am beaming in from Colorado Springs, Colorado, so south of Denver.
What would you say is your most frequent outdoor activity? I feel like I'm envisioning primitive survival skills, snowshoeing. What do you got for me?
Summertime is golf and getting some running in. Wintertime is shoveling snow, it seems, off the driveway over the last few weeks, but enjoy skiing and snowboarding when I can.
Well, in addition to your very impressive, winter athletic activities, shoveling included, you are our first ever guest who has a doctorate in computer science. Let me do, if I can, some justice to the very cool background you have. You've got over 20 years experience in marketing, corp comms, product development. You're the founder of a new company called Measured PR, which we're going to get into. You're also the owner of Best of Co., which is a digital marketing agency. Previously, you worked at Western Union. You were the global lead of media analytics and insight there. You built a media monitoring and analytics center of excellence. You developed this unique media impact scoring model that linked media insights to key business drivers, enhanced brand reputation, and drove business outcomes. And then previously, you were at Cisco Systems, where you led key strategies for market intelligence, social media listening, advanced analytics to better understand company needs. And then you worked with several other notable brands, the Denver Broncos, the U.S. Olympic Committee, Peet's Coffee, HP. We're really thrilled to have you on the program. And I want to start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about your career arc. Tell us about this journey, computer science, into technology for
Yeah,
comms.
Absolutely. So I'll start with my days at Cisco Systems, which was around 2000. I started out as a product manager on a number of their products. They're actually serving their internal services team to provide services to large companies. It was on the marketing side, but then later in my year, I was there for 13 years. Late in my career at Cisco, it was on the social media listening side, as well as marketing analytics, and then ultimately corporate communication. So that's where I kind of got this taste of early stages of media monitoring, using a number of social listening and media monitoring tools back in the day. But it was all about, for us, it was all about creating action from, I remember 60,000 or so mentions of Cisco and all variations of Cisco for a given month. So trying to, and this was my doctoral work, trying to understand that action from the noise and then actually align to business outcomes, whether it's a sales opportunity or a higher touch customer service opportunity or what have you. So that was my time at Cisco.
So a great run at Cisco. And by the way, one of the world's leading tech infrastructure companies. So a real hard tech job. Then moving into the financial services sector, how'd you take that skill set with you and evolve it further?
So for Western Union, I started out as the global lead for media monitoring, analytics, and reporting, using some media monitoring tools. And they were, if I could say, a hot mess when it comes to being able to track their brand reputation, track their tens of thousands of mentions every month, and a little bit with my learnings at Cisco, trying to, really understand the conversation, understand reputation and perception to take action from all this data. And that's kind of built this center of excellence there at Western Union, built a great team around media monitoring. And through my time there, it was what I've uncovered actually is the ability, what's important, certainly speaking to executives, and this was a little bit of an aha moment for me, was if you're not aligned to business strategy, whether it's financial or tech or whatever you are in, if you're not aligned from a corporate communication standpoint to that overall business strategy, ultimately creating a corporate narrative, you're not able to measure successfully. So that's one of the ahas that I took with me and said, okay, well, wouldn't it be interesting to take that learning and provide that to other large brands? And hence, that's where I am now with this little company called Measured PR that I'm excited to kick off.
I just really admire it because, listen, I worked in a large company too and started my own thing, and I empathize. And especially since you're in the early days, I extra empathize with having this idea and you're trying to figure out the right time to do it. What about this moment, like in technology, for example? But it could be also the moment that companies are facing with regard to geopolitical risk and needing to have a narrative that's increasingly relevant at a very distracted time. What about this moment makes you excited to start Measured PR? And then within that, what will Measured PR do?
It's actually an interesting moment that we find ourselves in corporate communications, PR measurement. And it's this intersection of obviously this little thing called AI. But I think from my perspective, with now the up and coming technology of AI, I think there's a gap still that exists. And I think we've kind of over-indexed on, okay, AI is going to solve, everything from world hunger to understanding true brand reputation to let's maybe step back a little bit and say AI is a wonderful thing and we should certainly leverage AI, but it only gets us that far. And so there's certainly something that my hypothesis with Measure PR is there is a balance between human analysis, that human expertise to understand that nuance of the conversation, of the mentions, and AI to create this, what I would consider a richer, more comprehensive view of brand perception and brand reputation. That is kind of where I'm taking Measured PR, in that it's a unique value proposition to combine not just AI, but human analysis to create this true, more comprehensive view of a brand.
And walk me through how the founding story came together. Were there reflections, things you built at Western Union that you're really proud of, that you're looking to take to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. So we created back at Western Union this idea of brand impact score. And it's kind of what I would consider a true brand reputation score. And with the tools that we're using back at the time, it was a little bit of the traditional, you have a monthly report that looks at volume and reach and sentiment, and then you kind of have this monthly graph over time to look at high reaching articles and the syndications and what was owned mentions of a press release versus earned mentions. Good stuff. But the executives that I was serving at the time was basically telling me, okay, to be blunt, so what, right? I mean, what is an impression worth? I don't know what an impression is worth. So that's where I introduced this idea of media impact scoring model, which I now have labeled that as my own as PR score. So a trademarked methodology to go beyond volume, reach, and sentiment to include things like prominence, salience, and some other unique scoring factors to create this, what I would consider unique PR score. That I think is hopefully gearing towards somewhat of a unique industry score. And I know there's other scores out there. Signal AI has a scoring methodology. So I think it's going to be interesting over the next, who doesn't, right? So I would consider that unique. But I think the point of that is certainly to go beyond traditional metrics. I think that's key. My approach, I think maybe similar to others, is to have that alignment to real business strategy. So there's an exercise that I take my clients through to say, okay, well, let's think through from not just a corporate communications objective standpoint, but from an overall company brand standpoint, what are your top 5 initiatives from a company? And are really aligning to those. And then when you have those clearly defined, you're now able to, I would suggest, truly measure the impact of outputs from a public relations and corporate communications team.
Very much relate to that journey. You wrote something on LinkedIn recently, or should I say Measured PR's LinkedIn page did, but I would presume you might have been behind it. And there was a quote I just want to bring to the fore. It said, by consistently offering data-driven insights and demonstrating how communications impact the business from brand perception to crisis, PR leaders can secure a seat at the executive table. Now, you referenced at Western Union this moment when the executive said to you, what's an impression worth? And I can't tell you how common of a question that is. Everybody I talk to is ground these old school metrics like advertising equivalent value and impressions, which we all know are sort of bullshit, but we don't necessarily know how to escape beyond it. So I'd be interested, whether at Western Union or in your nascent stages at Measured PR, do you have any reflections, any lessons learned for listeners in terms of how they can best take a score, something proprietary like your PR impact score, and gather around a table with the marketing folks, the sales folks, the HR folks, the IR folks to say, this metric stands toe to toe with the other ways that you're demonstrating how you're driving value. How do you do that on not only the technical basis, that's great, but I mean also on the change management basis?
Absolutely. So critical. Because I mean, if you think of PR and corporate communications, it really touches across the board, internal, external, what that corporate narrative is, how that supports being an employer of choice, how that supports driving your overall marketing strategy to influence and ultimately gain new customers and consumers, right? So tapping into that, I completely agree, Dan, that when it comes to PR, public relations, corporate communications, and the ability to measure against yourself across the organization, when you're able to show that data and the outputs that you have, and it's not just, again, that press release and seeing how many syndications it gets, but understanding that that press release drives your corporate narrative to then drives earned coverage, which then drives where you want to be seen, right? From a target source standpoint, publication standpoint. So all of that work you're able to quantify with this, whether it's a score that you use or, with Measured PR score, you're able to show the impact of public relations. And I think that's key because in my experience, you don't just get the questions from executives to say, okay, so what? What's an impression worth? You also get the comments from, okay, well, why not just do a Google search on, or I have Google Alerts set up, or I have, so all these different things that say, okay, well, when you're having that conversation, you're actually trying to justify your worth to the organization. And with having a quantifiable score, like a PR score, you're able to show exactly what your worth is to the organization to drive perception, to drive reputation. So critical stuff, I think, for corporate communications.
I'm sure the next question that most of the listeners would have right now is like, okay, fabulous. You've got this technically sophisticated AI-powered score. Am I still relevant? And I want to talk about the role of human beings. Another one of the articles you wrote is that AIs role is to augment human capabilities and not replace them. And to read another quote from you, you can tell I was doing a deep dive on your stuff. AI is excellent, you said, at identifying emerging trends by analyzing patterns across social media and news platforms. And it can point out when a particular topic is gaining traction, offering PR teams the chance to capitalize on it or adjust their messaging accordingly. But again, you say AI's limitation lies in its inability to fully comprehend the why behind the trend. Human experts can dive deeper into these trends, understanding social, political, cultural factors that drive sentiment. Tell me a little bit around the handoff between machine and
Yeah,
human.
it's a couple of different hands off that's really going back and forth. Certainly you need tools like Signal AI to create these sophisticated keyword searches and to pull in mentions of a particular brand or a set of brands and peers. You need tools like Signal AI to understand themes and of conversation that's coming through. But then you apply human analysis to really understand that nuance of conversation, to really understand true sentiment. And I would suggest that, platforms cannot really detect true sentiment. So that human analysis is needed to understand from a qualitative standpoint. Quantitative, absolutely. From a qualitative standpoint, to understand that nuance, you need that human analysis to really dig into the conversations to understand, A, is that article really about me as a brand? And is it important? And am I being represented through a logo, through an image, through an executive voice? And there's weighting on that, right? A passing mention of a Starbucks compared to a piece from a Wall Street Journal headline article versus a passing mention at the very bottom is completely different, going back to what's an impression worth. So that human analysis is critical to understand that nuance. But then you're also able to, once you have, from my standpoint with Measured PR, once you're able to create these scores and define them in these distinct buckets, you're now able to apply AI to come up with that richer level theme analysis to provide back to the client to say, here's what you are doing, here's what your competitors are doing. And oh, by the way, it's not just answering the so what, but it's now, I think, back to maybe one of your original questions, Dan, is moving from the so what to the now what. And I think that is where we're going to find ourselves as PR professionals, certainly from a measurement standpoint, that move from your good stuff, very key in the way of brand perception and brand awareness of where you are, but moving with AI and human analysis from that so what to now what, as in like next month or next quarter, we should be doing as a team these activities to help increase our perception or our reputation, because here's what the data is telling us. And you're constantly measuring against that.
I mean, this sounds very disruptive. And if you think about like all the big agencies out there, I'm an alumni of Weber Shandwick, which as of the week we're recording this in late December, just entered into an agreement to get bought by Omnicom. We saw the whole Burson thing happen. We've seen Edelman layoffs happen at a huge number. There's a lot of disruption going out with the holding companies or the big agencies. And they're really focused on two things, right? Which is wrapping themselves in data to add credibility to the gut instinct that they've long traded on. And second, having something sharp, something differentiated when it comes to activations. Now, it sounds like Measured PR, definitely more sophisticated on the data side, but you've talked about the human beings moving into the now what. And I'd be interested just with some examples of what that might look like. Is that targeting particular journalists? Is this thinking about particular messages? Is this identifying conferences for executives to show up at? Where do you draw the line in terms of recommendations versus activation? And what is the complexity, diversity, panoply, so to speak, in terms of the array of activations you are recommending in the first place?
You mentioned some great examples, and it includes those, Dan, as recommendations. It also includes key messaging around social media, because what we found with the data, the needle is being moved by one of your peers that's doing something quite well when it comes to key message alignment through social with one of their campaigns, and it's something that we can potentially learn from. So it's certainly all those things. And I think that's the whole point with this is when you cast a wide net, but you're very fine tuned to providing these recommendations, that I think there's a lot that comes into play when it comes to activation. The journalist outreach, because there's a journalist that's in your industry that's a key influencer that was uncovered that you want to reach out to. So yeah, it's a number of those things, including the marketing side. And I think that's one of the points of this is it's certainly corporate narrative through the different channels of executive voice and thought leadership. But we can't forget how close marketing should be tied to corporate communications, because one should be helping the other, and particularly in this case, public relations supporting the corporate narrative to push across the different digital channels that particular brand has.
It's super interesting. Well, you're writing a book.
I am writing a book.
How many possible things do you need to do at one time? Tell me about the book. What is the core thesis of the book? And hopefully you're not ruining
No,
anything.
not at all. Yeah.
And how is it formed by the eponymous company of which you share the same name? The book is Measured PR. The company is
the book is Measured PR, and it's all about the journey that I've had throughout my career, but then also keying in on this whole idea of balancing AI and human analysis, which again is key point to what I'm trying to get across. We cannot just rely on AI. We cannot just rely on a platform. There's going to be a balance that I would suggest that takes place with human analysis and AI to create a more richer understanding of brand reputation and perception. So it's kind of walking through my methodology of PR Score. I'm not giving away too much, but yeah, I'm excited about it. Hopefully that's going to come out first quarter of next year.
I'd be interested as somebody who has served as an executive at a big company and now is starting their own thing. Clearly, there's a sea of change when it comes to modern skill sets being necessarily much more advanced when it comes to AI and data analysis than they used to need to be. And by the way, the same change happened when comms people had to figure out what social media was. So it's not like it's brand new. Before that, what the internet was. Who are the folks you're hiring for? And what are their skill sets look like? If I wanted to be an intern at Measured PR, consider this my video application. What would you be interviewing me about? What are the type of questions you'd be asking me? What are the examples you would want me to bring to that?
Yeah, real world examples I think are key. Maybe to the questions that you're driving towards is having a technology background. I mean, we're all technologists when it comes to having a phone and the technology that we use on a day-to-day basis. Having a technology background, I think, is super, super important to stay active on the latest trends of AI or what have you. I think that's super, super important. But then just being able to ask the so what when it comes to data. I mean, I've always kind of been a proponent of asking, 3 times the so what. What's the data telling us? Okay, it's telling us this. Okay, well, so what? What is it? So being able to really ask the questions of data to understand what it means to the business, I think is maybe the third point. So being a strong technology person, staying up on technology trends, being able to be a data person as well, I think is also critical, and combining those two is super key. But then also kind of going out to the new frontier when it comes to data to ask the so what of data and how it applies to my business or whatever industry you're in, I think is super important. So that's, beyond the soft skill sets, that's probably what I would look for, Dan.
And I'd just be interested in the world of AI advancement. There's obviously like tools that are extremely expensive and yet highly agile. Obviously, I don't think Measured PR has raised like a full $1 billion funding round and built its own LLM. But as a doctorate, you have a PhD in computer science and you earned a doctorate. So, doctor, what kind of tech tools are you looking to partner with or adapt to your own uses? Are you, looking to build your own walled garden when it comes to an LLM, like an OpenAI? Are you looking to train certain topics and entities in your own unique way, train your own sentiment analysis, train your own metrics beyond impressions. I would just be interested, like, what are the different inputs that you're looking to create that are your own? And are there open source tools out there, I mean, publicly available tools, that you would encourage communicators who are interested in building like you are to explore?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT-4 is something that I rely on, my team relies on quite heavily. But I think the ability to continuously feed the engine to understand themes, to understand, this nuanced approach, to have the machine, we'd be more reliant on the machine versus the human, right? So as we continue to go down that road of we're feeding the machine data, we're continuing to allow the machine to learn from the data. And a lot of these, what I'm finding, Dan, is across industry is somewhat the same, right? So in the top 5 automobile brands, their objectives as a corporate communications team, how they communicate, the data that's being pulled in, how we build these themes within that data set applies across industry. So that's kind of an interesting insight that I've uncovered over the last few months. But to your point is being able to continuously feed the system, which you're now creating a machine to provide output towards what your goal is, I think is what we're now being able to uncover with this human analysis to AI balance. So we're continuously going down this road. We're continuously learning, and it's quite interesting.
Listen, we've talked about change management. We've talked about tech adoption. We've talked about your own proprietary view on what media impact and PR's impact on the business outcomes looks like. I'd be interested in hearing, your sort of vision for what the PR function of the future looks like. Imagine you get brought in by a Fortune 100 CCO, and they're saying, listen, you've got sort of unlimited budget to ramp things up, ramp things down, go soup to nuts here. For the folks listening on this call, thinking about how they might want to change their functions, what would be some guiding principles, some lessons learned, whether it's at Measured PR or Western Union, that you would say are essential components in building the function of the future?
I think, and it kind of goes back to our earlier conversation of PR leaders having a seat at the table and being relied upon when it comes to that corporate narrative and building that brand reputation. I think in the past, PR leaders have struggled with being respected, having that seat at the table of what they can provide to drive the overall company objectives. So you're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years with data, with AI, with the ability to create a corporate narrative that executives on the other side of the table are going to really become reliant on. And it's going to be an interesting play because I think that's been a gap over the last few years for PR leaders.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation with you, and I'm wishing you the best of luck in driving the new business. I definitely remember what it was like on that first Empty Tuesday, and I think you're a little bit further along. You're also quite established with some amazing brands behind you. But nonetheless, going out on your own is still a journey, no matter how fancy you are. And if people want to get in touch with you, or they want to procure Measured PR services, or have you speak at their conference or something, how do they get in touch with you?
It's really simple. Evan, EVAN, at measuredpr.com. The website measuredpr.com is out there and has my contact information. So certainly would appreciate that then.
I don't know how you got the domain name. You must have gotten that in 1999 or something.
I was lucky. It worked out.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. This has been yet another episode of Signal in the Noise. Evan, thanks for sharing all the words of wisdom. Till next time.
Take care.